Hi, I'm Becky Droz. Thank you for tuning into the Gorilla HR podcast. In my work with Total Rewards Consulting, I train employers that employee development is one of the 5 categories of total rewards. Money is important, but even I, who specialize in compensation planning, admit it's not the only thing. In Mercer's Inside Employee Minds 2026 report, employees reported career advancement and development are unmet needs. Career advancement and development should be a win-win for employees and employers, and I'm pleased to have Sandra Coker with me today to chat about this. Sandra is the founder and CEO of Human Power Solutions, where she has spent over 2 decades turning workplaces into thriving ecosystems by putting people first. She is the author of People Profit, a game-changing book packed with actionable insights on turning employee growth into sustainable business success. Hi, Sandra. Thank you for joining me today.
So happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, Sandra, one of the things that I know you talk about is that when people lose talent, they have good people walk out the door, often we can attribute that to the leaders. So what is happening there with people's leadership style that is just running people out the door?
I'm not sure if it's style, actually. I think a lot of it is they're investing so much in their leaders and not hearing the employees. So a lot of what I talk about with our leaders and our CEOs is let's start with the boots on the ground. Let's start with the feet on the street, because a lot of times a process could be broken. There could be some silos and some toxicity below the leaders. And regardless of your style, if you don't know that's going on or you're not fixing that process, you just have frustrated employees and they walk out the door.
Yeah, that's interesting. I worked for a manufacturing company. This was many years ago, but there was very much an us versus them mentality of, you're on this side of the wall and you're on the other side of the wall. And you would certainly hear that sometimes when there were issues. Maybe it was a quality issue or they weren't hitting the production numbers that they wanted. And you could go out and talk to people on the floor and they could tell you exactly what was happening and why they weren't doing it. It wasn't that they weren't trying to or that they were lazy. Right. It was there's a problem and the leadership isn't aware of it and they don't understand because they're not involved in the day-to-day hands-on.
Right. Yeah, and they're hearing things like third hand. So they're developing policies a lot of times, or they're coming up with these brilliant ideas, and they just have no idea what's actually happening. So there's that, and then there's also the leaders that are not open for new ideas and innovation, and kind of have that autocratic.
Let's talk more about that. I think that is a real issue. Yes. I think everybody wants to be like, oh, yes, I'm open to ideas and we have an open door policy and we'd love to hear it. But the reality is that's not happening and we're not welcome to that. So what do we do? How can we coach and create better leaders?
I think one of the things which is really, I think, very important is doing some sort of a behavior style or communication style assessment. Whether, we subscribe to whatever. So you can do DISC, predictive index, HBDI, like there's so many of them out there. But at least have a starting point of how are we communicating and what's our style. And when I'm going in and talking with leaders and we're talking about doing, professional development, it's the best skill is how to ask really good questions and how to listen. And then from there, providing clear direction. And if people can just learn to slow down and do the 2 ears, 1 mouth thing, listen twice as much as you talk, I think we wouldn't have so many issues.
Yes. I just recently, and I'm sure it's been around forever, but heard the acronym WAIT, that is, why am I talking? And I'm like, yes, I knew some leaders of my day. I'd like to put that up on their wall.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that sometimes too. I'll be honest with you,
We all are. We all are. Yeah.
But I think part of
it's a skill.
Yeah. And it's self-awareness. It's, like you got to know, like, am I talking too much and am I not hearing what somebody else has to say? And like, I think I'm a Gen Xer, and on our podcast, we always bash the Gen Xers because we're not super nice people. Buckle up, buttercup, and let's roll. And that's it just isn't the way it's going to work anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think that is really something when I think about generations in the workplace, that very idea is something that I think we have to get our hands around and figure out how do we fix it. So
Yeah.
that idea of, buckle up, or I really get tired of hearing that the younger generations don't want to work when we think about like Gen Z or Gen Alpha. And my perspective is they want to work, they just don't want to work like you do.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great thing because I've got two Gen Zers, and they are really their friends. They are so hardworking. They want to succeed. But my daughter, she watched me. I owned a gym for 7 years. I've grown this business for the last 6, and I work. I mean, I just work constantly, and she's just like, I don't want your life. Like she's like, I love you, Mom, but but it's what I'm used to, and it's not what they want. They want to make the money and they want to do a really good job and they're willing to pay their dues, but they also really understand what it means to have some balance.
Yeah. Where do you think that came from? I have some ideas, but I'd be curious, where do you think that shift came from?
I think watching us work, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, I think a lot of it is, and then the divorce rate. I think that's another huge thing. A lot of broken marriage. I'm guilty of that, and a lot of that. And I see this next up and comings. They want a bunch of kids and they want to be married for a long time, and I think they really value that. So I think the brokenness of our families has really driven some of this change.
Yeah. Yeah. And I grew up in a household, both of my parents worked and we came home from school. I can remember, gosh, probably third grade. My brother was 2 years older, coming home after school and being by ourselves. And, when microwaves came out, and we were never the earliest adopters of technology, but I remember getting a microwave and it was like, wow, we can make ourselves like warm meals. And it was
Yeah.
just, my parents were at work and they worked hard,
Yeah.
and I saw that. But I agree, there are times where I think, what was there something somebody missed or that they weren't there for? And overall, I don't necessarily feel like they missed a lot, but I definitely have memories of
Yeah.
them being out and at work for sure.
Yeah, no, my parents were, my mom was working constantly, and I remember we got our first microwave, and she's still at 87, still an early adopter of technology. It's crazy. But I remember her making scrambled eggs in the microwave, and it was like magic. We were like, oh my God. But yeah, like I cooked, we had 9 of us at the house, and
Wow.
I was cooking for the family, because I got home and I like to cook. So
Yeah.
it was just part of our DNA.
Yeah, same. My mom would give us a stack of money like once a month, and we would go to the grocery store, my brother and I, and we would do the grocery shopping. And then I did a lot of the cooking, almost like
Yeah.
Monday through Thursday. I was the primary one making dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, yep, here, yeah. We have the same
Yeah.
childhood.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I agree. I think from a generational standpoint, people, it's they do what just different things.
yeah,
And again, that balance and finding success both in their lives and their relationships, I think is something that is more important.
yeah, it is. And it's good to see and it's good to hear. And I don't know, I really enjoy talking to my younger kids and their friends and just hearing what's going on in their careers. And I don't see this up and coming generation as being anything but like, I think they're going to be magical. I really do.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
excited for it, actually.
Me
Yeah.
too. Me too. Yay, I love that. So I want to go back to one of the things you mentioned, and that is that sometimes when we're working with different groups, and I think it can be helpful in this generational context as well as all leadership and communication, and that's some of the different behavioral assessments and tools. I love those. DISC is my favorite because there's like a quick, dirty method, or you can get really involved.
Yeah.
That is definitely one of my favorite. Do you have a preference for those types of assessments?
I honestly feel like it depends on what industry we're in. Because we're industry agnostic, I think it really depends. DISC is our go-to for the most part, but really love predictive index. But we have a very good partner who is extremely adept at debriefing that, and I think it really depends on the person that's doing the debrief is a huge part of it. So all of our facilitators, if they do DISC, they're certified in DISC, and the motivators and all that. So that is our favorite, but PI is a close second.
Yes, I think I just love stuff like that. I think it's so fun. But
Yeah.
I think that's also a good point, though, that it's not really one size fits all for any sort of training and leadership skill development.
Yeah.
What do you think the future of L&D looks like?
Well, I think the what we're pushing right now is getting L&D out of HR. Sorry, I know you're an HR podcast. You
That's
know,
okay, I'm not offended.
you know, because it's a firm belief of mine that L&D should stand on its own. You know, obviously partnering with HR, but HR has so many things to deal with compliance and benefits and all the things that HR has to do with it. You know, L&D kind of gets the back burner. It doesn't get the budget. You know, so it's the thing that really kind of is the first thing to be swept away, and it's the real thing that's going to help you retain your people. It's what people are looking for. So I think, you know, I'm hoping that that's one of the trends. The other thing is, you know, one of the things that we do is we do nugget learning. So meaning that if we have an 8-hour communications topic that we're running, we're not doing a full day. We're doing, you know, 4 2-hour sessions over 2 months, so that the learning is sticky and it stays. So you know, I think having a long-term relationship with clients and being able to deliver all the things that they need over a period of time to really transform the organization. That's what I see people being able to do. I get calls for like, oh, can you do an 8-hour thing? And I'm like, I'm not a one-hit wonder. It's just not what
Yeah.
we do. You know, like we'll do a kickoff if you want us, you know, but it would be subsequently followed by, you know, a plan. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I love that having it split up over sessions too, because then you can have some kind of call to action and give people the opportunity to practice those skills. And then when you come back together, you can reevaluate and share okay, what did you actually do with this?
Exactly, and then you just tag it on some more. And the other thing that really does is if you're working with an outside third party company, it helps to really solidify the relationship with the facilitator. So the facilitator's not coming in just once; they really get to know the group, and so then they can kind of like adjust to whatever's happening within the group, and becomes a really really good partnership. So you know, I want to see L&D as being partners and.
Yeah.
You know, really helping our companies retain their employees and grow them.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing, just that relationship. So I actually have a client I'm working with and doing a little bit of development and training and some coaching and all those great things. And I have a group that I will just be honest, I'm not like clicking with them the way that I have with other groups. And so that relationship really makes a difference. And
Yeah.
so for me, now that I've spent a little bit of time with them, I'm realizing, okay, maybe I need to do even more quick hands-on activities. I love an activity, like let's actually do something and then talk about it instead of just talking.
Yeah.
But it's hard when it's like that relationship isn't it's just not clicking in the right way. So I
Yeah.
think that's where that relationship is important. And I love your approach of over time and working to be able to build that. That really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and like our company, you know, we have facilitators who are experts in their fields, and we probably have 10 leadership facilitators. So when I'm meeting with a company, meeting with a CEO, I'm identifying who I think, you know, would resonate with that group. You know, I'm a loud Irish girl, little bit quirky, so my facilitation style sometimes doesn't fit with some others. Where I've got others that are just, you know, really, you know, boom boom, and that fits. So we work hard to match it, because if you don't have the right match, it's really hard to get anything done.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Perfect
Yeah.
sense. So one of the last things I want to touch on while we're chatting is the idea of burnout. And this is something that I hear a lot come back from the leadership perspective of, is it something that leadership is doing wrong, or then even for leaders themselves? So talk to me a little bit about your philosophy around burnout.
So people will do what leaders do, meaning if you're a leader and you're saying, hey, take a lunch, and you don't take a lunch, no one's going to feel comfortable taking a lunch. If you're sending emails at 10 p.m. and you say, oh, you don't have to answer it, don't send it. Right? So I think leaders have to be very mindful of their behavior and what they're modeling for the employees. So for example, my husband works second shift, so there's lots of times that I am doing work in the evening because he's not home. But I use delayed delivery. So, I don't want to bother someone if I'm not going to ping my team at 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, not 1 o'clock, but I'm not going to ping my team at 10 o'clock at night because I don't expect them to answer me at 10 o'clock at night. So I think we really have to be mindful of the people that are working for us. We want to make sure that they are able to do their hobbies and do the things that they love to do. My out of office goes on at 7 now, at 7 p.m. It says I'm not going to look at my email until tomorrow morning. And so setting those expectations and setting those boundaries for everybody is the key to it.
Yeah, I heard two important things there. So one being what you do as a leader is what people see. And so if you're modeling that behavior, that's what they're going to think the expectation is.
Exactly.
So I think that's important. But then I also think what I heard you say is important is they do actually need to shut off. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in those same standard hours as everybody else. But as a leader, it's still important for you to give yourself that time to do the things that, kind of get you excited.
100%. Yeah. Like it's springtime. See those motorcycles behind me? That's my love. Like I'm just, love to do that. And when I get on that bike, it's like I don't think about anything except for the road and that machine. And I think it's important for everyone to be able to, whatever it is, hiking or meditating or yoga, whatever. I mean, everyone needs the opportunity to unwind and decompress.
Yeah, I learned that lesson the hard way as a leader a few years ago. I had somebody working for me in a payroll capacity, and they were out, and a question came up about some calculation for somebody's check. And so I, sent the email knowing that, they're gone, like we'll get this figured out when they come back. And like that night I got an email response and I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, well, you sent an email. And I'm like, yeah, but you're on vacation. You have PTO. Not only because I want you to be out and enjoying your PTO, but also the non-exempt issue. And I'm like, what? If you're checking every night, don't.
Yeah.
We need to be tracking that and paying you for that if this is something that you're regularly doing. Right. But it was that very, very important lesson learned of just make myself a reminder and ask it when they're back, or again, use that delay. That's a great tool. Yeah. So that you're not sending something.
Yeah. And you still have it done. It's still done. It's still checked off for you. So it's off your brain because you know it's going. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've struggled with it myself as now as a small business owner, being away sometimes. Well, do I put the out of office? Do I say it's just a delayed response? And I've reached the point where I've decided, my time is important and traveling is important to me. So, of course, I try to arrange my own schedule and project work so that, when I'm taking that time off, things are covered. But I have finally accepted with a little struggle along the way to say, I am enjoying time with my family and friends.
Yeah.
I am not going to respond to you until next week.
Yeah.
Because like in the work I'm doing there, it's not an emergency. Yes, there might be things that you need a timely response to, but it's not a life or death situation. So it's
and people respect it. They're like, okay, how was your trip? I mean, for the most part, people respect it and want it for themselves.
Yeah. So, I think that's really critical.
Yeah.
So with all of these different things as leaders and as people who are potentially coming up, maybe into that promotion opportunity, what are some of the things that they can do immediately to develop some of these skills, that better listening, to understand their communication styles? What can they go out and just start on their own?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of free, things online. I think the free emotional intelligence test that's kind of one of the keys for younger people, or actually for anybody at this point, really having that self-awareness. I love that tool. There are so many podcasts to listen to and so grab as much information. I'm a big fan of, Simon Sinek, Walter Dwyer, I forget. So there's a lot. Jim Rohn. There's some older people too to listen to kind of motivate yourself. But I think the habits are, figure out what your exercise time is. Make sure that you put time aside for that. That's really important. Really kind of define what the things that are really important to you. And then, what I find is a lot of times I think one of the things that's really good about Gen Xers is that we write a lot of stuff down, like pen to paper. And I would love to see our younger generation do that as well, because I think that's the stuff when you put pen to paper and you write down, hey, this is what I got to do. This is my to-do list. Yes, you can have it online. it's amazing how productive you will be, and just like clicking stuff off.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I think it's
I'm
really
a huge, I
organizing.
write everything down.
Yeah.
Yes, I totally resemble what you're saying.
Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
organizing your day and prioritizing it, and setting your boundaries early. And if you go in guns blazing at first to a job and you're just going, guess what? That's the expectation. So you want to try hard, you want to work hard, but you also want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for long-term success as well. Yeah.
I just recently, I'm a huge fan of podcasts and listening to the folks that you mentioned and TED Talks and Harvard Business Review, and just, you never know what you're going to find. And sometimes it's not great. And sometimes I think like, oh, this is a bunch of crap, but that's okay. It's still, you can still gain something from it. But one of the things that I recently listened to said, and I wish I could remember who it was, but the person said, strive for mediocrity when you're getting started. And it said, we think that we need to be great at everything. And then we're disappointed because it's that whole concept of the unmet expectation, and it's not sustainable. And so it was like, try all these different things, but strive for mediocrity. And when it's easy and it just clicks for you, you'll know you're doing the right things.
Yeah, I love that. That's really good. I was at my grandkids do cheerleading, and we were at a competition last weekend, and there was 4 teams on one of the things, and the award ceremony came up, and they were like, "Oh, in 4th place." And I looked at my ex-husband, I'm like, did they just say 4th place like it was a good thing? Like every single team, every single team got like a cheering award. And I'm like, that's one of the issues. Like, competition is not really competition. So I'd like to see us bring back a little bit of competition.
Yeah. A little competition, a little true meritocracy.
Yeah. And compete, because that will help them compete with themselves. So when they're striving for that mediocrity and they get there, and that's success, but now I want more, it'll help them strive for more.
Yeah. Great perspective. Yeah. Well, Sandra, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing some tips. Lots of great info for our listeners. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. All right, y'all, we've come to the end of the show, and we are at the time of, oh my God, Becky, look at that comment. So I recently watched a reel that said we need to cancel workplace activities that have a goal of relationship building and bonding. Getting rid of forced fun is what this video is basically saying. So many comments were in support, but one said, let's stop complaining about everything and appreciate the little things. I agree that forced fun is not always fun, but it can be. In the context of being a leader, sometimes we have to do things that may be a bit uncomfortable. We also need to form authentic connections, so I challenge people not to just complain, but to offer ideas of how to do that. What activities would help you build relationships without getting relegated to the forced fun category? Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
That's it for this episode of the Gorilla HR Podcast. We hope you found some unconventional wisdom and actionable advice to help you in your own HR journey. Remember, we're all working together to build better workplaces. Want to join in the conversation? Send us your questions, stories, and maybe even your own guerrilla tactics to podcast@gorilla-hr.com. And if you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and share with your network. Until next time.